This is homework 9.4, and I'm going to go ahead and do all of them here. You have 5 to the 1/3 times 5 to the 2/3. So you should have 5, the same base, 1/3 plus 2/3, which gives you 5 to the first power. You have to add your fractions, okay? Number 2, we have 2 times y to the 1/4, and you have 3 times y to the 1/3 equals 2 times 3 is 6. And now you have y to the 1/4 plus 1/3. So what you're going to have to do is find a common denominator and add them. This will be 6y to the 7/12. Number 3, we have negative 11 raised to the 1/3, negative 11 raised to the 1/3, negative 11 raised to the 1/3. We have the same base. So 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3, that's what you're adding. And since they have the same base, it's going to be negative 11 raised to the first power. Number 4, we have negative y raised to the 2/3 times y to the 1/5. That will equal to negative y raised to the 2/3 plus 1/5. This will come out to negative y raised to the 13/15. Number 5, we have 5 to the 1/4 times 5 to the 1/4. It's the same base, so it's 5 to the 1/4 plus 1/4, which gives us 5 to the 2/4. Since they have the same base, they have the same denominator. You add the numerator. So this is 5 to the 1/2. Okay, we're going to go ahead and multiply these two. We have negative 3 times 7 is negative 21. X is our same base, so we have 1/6 plus 2/6. That's supposed to be 1/6. So we have negative 21 times x raised to the 1/6 plus 2/6, which gives us negative 21x to the 3/6. Since they have the same base, what does that simplify to? Negative 21x to the 1/2 power. So what we're doing here is we're raising a power to a power. Remember that 16 has a power of 1 by default. And when you have a power raised to a power, you're going to be multiplying. Power raised to a power, you're going to multiply. Okay? So this will be 16. 1 times 1/2 gives you 1/2. X, and we have 2 times 1/2. And then you have y raised to the 8th times 1/2. Remember in our last unit, our last lesson, 1/2 means a square root. So you're actually getting the square root of 16. This is going to be x, and we have 2 times 1/2, which is 1. And 8 times 1/2 is actually y to the 4th power. So once I clean this up, the square root of 16 is 4x y to the 4th power. And that's what it simplifies to. Remember, we have a power raised to a power. So this will be z to the negative 3 times 1/9. So this will be z raised to the negative 3/9. Remember that negative turns into a reciprocal, so it's 1/z. 3/9, we can simplify. So that's 1/3. And that's what it's going to simplify to. Okay, remember that 2 is raised to the first power? And remember when we have a power raised to a power, we're going to multiply. So this will be 2 to the 4th power times x to the 1/4 power times 4. 2 to the 4th power, well, we know 2 to the 3rd is 8, so that's going to be 16. And we know that 1/4 of 4 is 1, so it's just going to be 16x. Okay, this is number 10. Remember that 25 is raised to the first power. And we have a power raised to a power, you're going to multiply, so that's 1/2. We have x raised to the -6 times 1/2. And then you have y raised to the second times 1/2. So remember that 1/2 is just a root, so that's the square root of 25. -6 times 1/2 is x to the -3. And 2 times 1/2 is 1, so it's just y. So I'm going to clean this up. The square root of 25 is 5. Y. The negative gives us a reciprocal, so it's going to be x to the 3rd power. So number 11, this is all raised to the 2/3 power. So you have 8 raised to the 2/3 power. We have a raised to the -3 times 2/3. And b is raised to the 9th times 2/3. 8 to the 2/3 power, you can do that on the calculator. -3 times 2 is -6. -6 divided by 3 is -2, so it's a to the -2 power. B, 9 times 2 is 18, divided by 3 is 6. So let's go ahead and clean this up. So this is 4. A goes in the denominator, so it's a squared. And then we have b to the 6. Okay, number 12. The negative means to get the reciprocal. So I'm going to write 25x to the 8th divided by 16x to the 4th raised to the 1/2. So you have 25 raised to the 1/2. You have x is raised to the 8 times 1/2. You have 16 raised to the 1/2. And you have x to the 4th times 1/2. So remember that 1/2 is a root. The square root of 25 is 5. And 8 times 1/2 is 4, so that's x to the 4th. Divided by the square root of 16 is 4. And then 1/2 of 4 is 2, so that's x squared. And this will be z. So I made a mistake. This is z. This is z. And this is z. So you leave it like that. Okay, I see that I have a negative exponent. That's going to tell me that I'm going to have to get the reciprocal of 1 over y. But let me first multiply 2 times 1/5, which gives us 2/5, over 1/5 times -1. So that -1/5, I'm going to move it to the top. So you have x to the 2/5 times y to the 1/5. Remember that the 1/5 is just a root. And remember the 2 is the power, so you have x squared times y. So we're going to simplify this. We know that 27 is actually raised to the first, so this will be 27 raised to the -2/3. We have m raised to the 9 times -2/3. And then n will be raised to the -3 times -2/3. So I'm going to keep it as 27 raised to the -2/3. 9 times -2 is -18. Divided by 3 is 6, so it's m to the -6. -3 times -2 is +6, so it's going to be n squared up. Negative 3 times negative 2 is positive 6 divided by 3, so it's going to be squared. So that negative 2/3 means it has to be in the denominator. So you have 27 raised to the 2/3 power. M to the negative 6 is going to be m to the 6. And then you have n squared. Okay, to clean this up more, it's going to be n squared. And I did type in 27 to the 2/3 in the calculator. That's 9m to the 6. If you can, try to simplify in the radical. That will help you out. Like 32 divided by 2. That's 16. R squared over s to the 4th. Now you can find the 4th root. So it's actually 16 to the 4th root. R squared is going to be 2 times 1/4. And s is raised to the 4th times 1/4. So 16 raised to the 1/4 is 2. I did that in the calculator, but 2 to the 4th is 16. 2 times 1/4 is actually 2/4, which is 1/2. And then 4 times 1/4 is just 1, so that's going to be s. And that's what it simplifies to. Okay, so we have 9, which is raised to the 1st power, which you multiply. It's going to be 9 to the 3/2. And then we have z, which is raised to the 10 times 3/2. So let me go ahead and further simplify. We have 9 raised to the 3/2, and then we have z. 10 times 3 is 30, divided by 2 is 15. I did use my calculator. 9 to the power 3/2 is 27. Z to the 15th power. Okay, before we find the negative 1/5 power, we got to understand that that's going to have to be the reciprocal. So you have negative 243 raised to the 1/5. You can use a calculator to figure this out. That's going to give you 1 over negative 3. So remember, we have a power raised to a power. This will be x raised to the 2/5 times 10 divided by y to the 1/2 times 10. 2 times 10 is 20. So you have 20 over 5. And you have y raised to the 10 over 2. 20 over 5 is 4, so that's x to the 4th. And 10 divided by 2 is 5, so it's y to the 5th.